Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's going to start off this review of Nuit Blanche by Dice B and Sans Sucre with one reason why you should listen to this album and one reason why you shouldn't. One reason why you should is if you love rap music. Good rap music. Now, one reason not to listen is if you believe in linguistic imperialism. If you believe that because you were born with the ability to speak English, you were born superior to all other people who speak other languages. If you believe that the entire world should bow down before the linguistic hegemony of English, then don't listen to this album, okay? Just don't. Just if that's what you believe, you know? If you believe my right is to be born with this privilege and I am never going to challenge that privilege even once in my life, then don't listen to this absolute banger of an album, okay? But let's get back to the reasons why you should listen to this. Just if you love underground hip-hop, especially if you love the modern invisible Renaissance music, if you love Rock Marciano and Griselda, you really have to listen to this album and you really have to listen to this review. Now, I'm going to help you with a few things, okay? I'm going to help you with the language barrier. I'm going to help you with a culture barrier. Because you see, rap that comes from French Canada, which is where this comes from, Montreal, has a particular sort of double heritage. So obviously it's influenced by American hip-hop, primarily East Coast hip-hop, but also it's very influenced by French hip-hop. And if you don't know, France is the second biggest producer of hip-hop in the world. Some of the best rap albums ever made were made in France in the 90s. And in the last, decade, there's been a renaissance. There's been a resurgence of people trying to make music that sounds like the good old school music of the 90s from France. Except the people who are trying to make that music are in Quebec. They are not really in France, or at least I haven't heard them in France. Tell me in the comments about who I'm missing in France. So the same way that Griselda represented the sort of new old school, this kind of resurgence, like making this old sound relevant, that's been happening up in Quebec with French hip-hop. If you're an American underground hip-hop fan, you've heard it too, because you've heard the production of Nicholas Craven, who is one of the best producers out there right now, and he is totally in the vein of 90s French hip-hop artists. Another sort of similarity between this project and French hip-hop is the fact that it is one white guy and one black guy. Part of what makes French hip-hop interesting is that it was always very multiracial, kind of a mix, a mélange. And it's particularly important, I think, in the context of French Canada because, sorry, you hear my baby crying upstairs. What can I do? She's crying in French, though. One of the problems of the sort of language laws and the pride in French Canada is sometimes it can veer over to the nationalist. Sometimes it can veer over to the racist, sort of like we were in Canada first and we deserve to be here. So having French hip-hop in French by someone who's white and black helps to sort of break that unfortunate side effect of this insistence on protecting the French language. Also, it's an old guy and a young guy. So Dice B has been around forever, and he's very keyed into what's happening in hip-hop. And then this other guy, Seinssucrer, is a very young guy, kind of up and coming. And it has this kind of great sort of, almost like Dr. Dre and Eminem feel, where it's like they're sort of helping each other. Like Eminem made Dr. Dre seem cooler and Dr. Dre made Eminem seem realer. That's what's happening here. Seinssucrer makes Dice B seem cooler, and then Dice B gives Seinssucrer this kind of stamp of approval from an older, more serious generation. Now, I've already covered Dice B. I reviewed one of his albums before. I'll include a link to it in the description here. His album Renaissance, which I liked a lot. He's a fascinating guy. He's had a radio show in Montreal since 1991. So he's this huge figure in Montreal hip-hop. He's both an observer and a participant. He's also just an interesting guy. Like he works full-time at a school, because you can't be a part-time radio DJ and make your living that way. I watched an interview with him recently where he sort of talks about how when he teaches, the kids that he teaches tell him, "I don't like your music." And I think that's important. I think that's important to this project because working with this younger producer, this younger rapper, who's a little bit more in the modern style, I think sort of helps to overcome that. But really, what this is, and you can see this is the album cover behind. It's a great album cover with Dice B dropping the sand into the hands of Seinssucrer, the sense of sort of passing the torch or sort of passing along. This really does appear to be a project that's really trying to focus on Seinssucrer, this white Québécois rapper. Now, first of all, his name. His name really... Okay. So, Saint means like boobs. Okay? And then sucré means like to sweeten. So his name basically means like boobs to sweeten, or kind of like sweet tits. I would say if I had to translate his name, I'd say his name is Sweet Tits, which is a weird name. I don't get it. I don't get why he calls himself that. I mean, it sounds good. Seinssucrer sounds good in French. But when you listen to this album, you are going to say the same thing that everybody is going to say when they listen to it. Oh my God, when did Westside Gunn learn to speak French? That's what you're going to be saying. When you first listen, you cannot believe how much this guy raps like Westside Gunn. Like, you almost feel like, what's going on here? And you're going to laugh, okay? That's natural to laugh, okay? It's natural. It's okay that you laugh the first time you hear it. But I am going to tell you, you're not going to laugh forever. You know, when I first heard Action Bronson, I laughed. I was like, this guy is just trying to be Ghostface Killah. He doesn't have an original flow, original style. I kept listening to his music, and now when I listen to Action Bronson, I don't hear Ghostface at all. Same thing with your old Droog and Nas, okay? Like, when I first heard him, I'm like, hello, Nas is still alive. Why are you trying to sound like him? Now I don't hear it. Eventually you realize that just because the voices sound the same, there's some play and cadence, it's not just an imitation, it's just building on this style of rapping. It's following this style of rapping, but it's not pure imitation. But when you first listen, you might think it is. You know, but I mean, when you actually pay attention, when you really listen to what he's saying and how he's rapping, you know, he's not doing any, do. He's not intentionally doing a ton of the super, super whiny stuff. So after I'm done laughing, after you're done laughing, excuse me, I don't edit my videos. A little cough here. And coffee from my mug, which if you want to buy a Professor Sky mug, you can go on the links there. Smash the like bucket. Smashez the like bucket, as they might say in French Canada. Subscribe, all that stuff. So, I realized, like, a white guy rapping like Westside Gunn. A French Canadian. I realized if you break down what a French Canadian accent sounds like. Okay, so I speak Parisian French. Okay, when I go to Canada, they think I'm from Paris. When I go to Paris, they think I'm from America. Okay, my accent, I learned late in life, so my accent is not great. But I sound French enough that the Canadians assume that I'm from Paris. Okay, when you have learned French with a Parisian accent, these are the things you think about the French Canadian accent. It's chantant. It's sing-songy. It's kind of nasal. It's often higher pitched. There's the zzz sound everywhere. So when you hear French in Paris as a background noise, you usually hear that. When I hear French Canadians, sing-songy, nasally, high-pitched, that's Westside Gunn. Westside Gunn actually raps like a French Canadian, not the other way around. It's not a French Canadian who raps like Westside Gunn. It's like the way that I hear l'accent canadien, c'est pas ça, quand j'entends, quand il parle comme ça, c'est quand j'entends, c'est ça, comme ça, ça, might break my break. It works perfectly between the two languages. So, that's just a theory. Plus, Buffalo is basically Canada. I mean, I live in Rochester, which is basically Buffalo. So Buffalo is culturally and spiritually very, very close to Canada. You know, people often laugh that Canada is the 51st state of America, whereas I think in some ways you could call Western New York, you know, the 13th province. Jesus, how many provinces are there in Canada? Are there 14 now? I got mixed up when they got none of it, and they got a couple extra ones in the 90s. Tell me in the comments how many how many provinces there are in Canada. But if we even go further, let's talk about, if you do speak French, the problems you are going to have understanding this album. Because it goes further than just having a French-Canadian accent. It's also quite often using French-Canadian vocabulary, French-Canadian words. A form of language that's called joual, which is an imitation of the word cheval in French, which would be pronounced in a very heavy French-Canadian accent as joual. Cheval, joual. Okay? Like there's an entire song called Ah ouais donc, which is just a French-Canadian expression, which basically means come on. But what ends up happening is I love this album, and when Dice B is rapping, I got it. A couple words I might miss but his accent isn't super heavy. Maybe some of his word choices, but listening to Seinssucrer is fascinating because he raps in this very thick French-Canadian accent mixed in with kind of a laid-back, aggressive mixture that you have with Westside Gunn, kind of nasally. Plus, he throws in all of these French-Canadian words and expressions and like shortenings of words. Plus, he throws in tons of English, which he might pronounce like English or he might pronounce like a French-Canadian. And that's the glory of French-Canadian hip-hop. It's always going to be in these multiple codes. French, French-Canadian, and English. All these things all at once. It's fascinating. What the hell are you listening to? If you don't listen to this album, it means you think Drake is the best rapper who ever lived. Okay? Just telling you. That's what you're saying. Like, I was talking to my wife about this, and she's a scientist, and she's saying that my problem in understanding his lyrics, Seinssucrer's lyrics, not Dice B's lyrics, because I do understand him, is that I don't always have the correct prior. Like, my prior experiences are getting mixed up, and I never know what I should be listening for. Should I be listening for a word in French that I know, a word in French that I know that's been destroyed by an accent, a word in French that I don't know because I don't speak joual or I don't really understand the French-Canadian accent, or should I be expecting English? Like, all these things all in the back. As if this album isn't interesting enough, based on what I just said, the whole thing is also produced by Seinssucrer. And it's a very, very well-produced album. It's not like it's pretty good. It's not a 4A produced album. It's not good for a rapper, I mean, again, I'm going to do what everyone does, which is compare white rappers, because that's what white rappers do. A lot of white rappers are also good producers. I would say he's a lot closer to LP than he is to Eminem. I've always thought Eminem's production's kind of whack, Like, just very, very well produced. And it's cool because it gives it this whole feeling. Apparently, I watched this interview on a TV show called Exposé 514, Exposé 514. It's a Montreal, like, hip-hop interview show. Apparently, they never even met. Like, Seinssucrer made these beats, sent them to Dice B, and then Dice B recorded his bits and then sent them back to him. And it has this kind of funny feel to it, where it really feels like they do know each other and like they're working together. And I think it's because artistically they very clearly were on the same wavelength. Like, they were totally together. In the interview, Dice B is sort of describing, again, this weird mixture of English and French. He says, "Tu entends quand les gars sont réels ou fake." So you can hear just from the voice when they are real or when they are fake. And I think I can do that too. And I don't just like fall over any new rapper who happens to sound good, but really this Seinssucrer guy does appear to have something really special going in his production and in his rapping. And I'm just happy to have been able to stumble on it. Actually, Dice B sent me the link himself. I didn't even get a chance to listen to it for the last month because of the baby upstairs. In this interview, it gives a great example of what makes the production on this album so good. See if you can hear the English in this. Il fait des trucs fucked up et des trucs boom bap. So, it means he does things effed up. The style of production can be effed up, which means sometimes the production on here is kind of avant-garde, kind of auto-tuney, a little bit weird and messed up and like a little bit unexpected. And then sometimes it's just kind of straight Invisible Renaissance, boom bap. Oh my God, thank God they make hip-hop again. Watching that interview is great because Dice B just says multiple occasions, thank God for Griselda. Griselda really did help to reopen a lane for a lot of different kinds of hip-hop. So let me give you an example of this album, of what it sounds like. With the song Illégal ou Légal, illegal or legal. I'll put a link to it up there. Just click on the banana if you want to hear it. You hear this great beat, this kind of boom bap style beat, this guitar like trailing out and just a really nicely placed beat. And then there's a sample from some old French or Québécois rap song, I don't know. Fait de vraie musique pour de vraies pistes de foot. So like make real music for real sons of bitches, basically, but they switched the first words. Instead of fils de pute, which means son of a whore, it's piste de foot, which is just nonsense. This is sort of like this reminds me the most of Craven. This reminds me the most of 90s French hip-hop. And then just like his style of flow and just his style of rapping, Seinssucrer, who starts off here, like he sounds like he's sort of running out of voice and he switches up the pace. He says things like... like, it seems to be mostly about the history of him rapping, but like, I'm trying to give you an example of how hard it is. J'aime mon micro bien mieux que mon pote Trinzin. So, he says in words I totally understand, I like my microphone much better than I like my buddy Trinzin. So, I don't know if he says de 13 ans, my best friend of 30 years, if his friend's name is Trinzin. I don't know, but that's the kind of funny thing. And I brought an example for you. I brought an example of you, a 3-second sample of this, just to go on the linguistic journey with me for this one single 3 seconds in here. I'm going to play it for you 3 times, see what you can hear. Actually, I'm going to play it for you 3 times. I want you to pause the video and type what you hear, okay? You'll probably hear some words you recognize, maybe not, okay? So let's listen to this 3 times. So I heard this, and I'm okay. So Donkey Kong, son chest avant rap. Donkey Kong, son chest avant rap. Okay, so like, is he saying Donkey Kong? Is he saying the Nintendo character Donkey Kong? Damn, that was a good Donkey Kong impersonation. Tell me in the comments how good of a Donkey Kong impersonation. I've never done one of those before. Is he saying Donkey Kong, or is he saying donc quiconque, which you mean in French, so anyone, in kind of a highfalutin way, almost like so whosoever. Is he saying Donkey Kong or Donkey Kong? All right, let's keep going. Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong, son chest. Donkey Kong, son chest. Kikogne son chest. Kikogne son chest. Chest is English. That's a chest. Oh, cogne, as in cogner, as in to like kind of hit or beat. It is Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong qui cogne son chest. Why does he say chest? Why doesn't he say poitrine in French? Poitrine is feminine. And he says son chest. So he uses the possessive adjective masculine with the word in English, chest, which no French person would understand. You play this for somebody in Paris, they won't understand it at all. Not even a little bit. Donkey Kong, son chest avant rap. They won't understand it a little bit. All right? Donkey Kong qui cogne son chest avant rap. So he beats his chest. So qui cogne, French. Donkey Kong qui cogne. Beautiful. Beautiful resonance with the words, using the English, the weird malformed English that came invented by a Japanese guy in 1983 or whatever. Donkey Kong qui cogne. And then son chest, because sa poitrine doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good with the rest of it. Donkey Kong qui cogne sa poitrine. Totally different sounding resonance. It doesn't match this beat, this sort of like Donkey Kong qui cogne son chest, right? Son chest. They have a wider palette. Okay, French rappers have the same thing. They have their langue de bled. They have the languages that they were born into, which are often Arabic or Senegalese and Wolof. You know, that might be from all over the world. So like you can just pick and choose, and it does a couple things. One, it makes rap more interesting because you have different words that you can use, that you can insert, that work with the flow. Second of all, it creates a community of those who understand what you're doing and what you're saying. because someone from Paris might not understand this, but someone from Montreal, someone from Laval, someone from Chicoutimi might. Okay? Donkey Konky cogne son chest avant de rap. Now, I'm a French professor, so that should actually be in the infinitive, avant de rapper, who beats his chest before rapping, but he just cuts it avant de rap because that fits better with the flow. So that's the fun. That's the interest. That's what I'm saying about his skill with these multiple different languages. Donkey Konky cogne son chest avant rap. You want to hear it again? All right. I'll play it for you one more time. Now that you know what the words are, let's hear it one more time. Dice B comes on here. He has this sort of like, I don't know, sort of a bon vivant style, like a happy, kind of old school, full of character. It's funny because when we were going back and forth, we've been talking on Instagram a little bit, and he obviously points out the comparison to Westside Gunn, which again, I don't even hear it anymore when I listen. And he said that he doesn't sound like anybody. And I think it's true. Dice B has his own sound. But if he reminds me of anybody, it's of the rapper Shryakin from I Am. Except sort of like the younger Shryakin. Shryakin, I think, smokes cigarettes, and his voice is kind of hurt from that. So there's this kind of like old school fun energy. And he just plays like Dice B, he's very talented. I mean, it's kind of weird that he's a very good radio DJ and also a very good rapper, because he like plays with the ends of his phrases. He has this very kind of playful flow all the way through, and the whole song is just a complete joy from beginning to end, with these voices, the old and the new, the white and the black, the French and the English, the Canadian and the French, just all mixing in together. So I'm going to go through the rest of the album a lot quicker than that. It opens up with a track called Nuit Blanche, which means like all-nighter. It's a white night. That's how you say that you've like been up all night, which is in honor of Nuit Blanche, which is the radio show that's been going on since 1991 that Dice B is the host of from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. on Mondays. That's what you call the real hip-hop. You have to imagine someone in 1991 deciding to go on the radio to promote hip-hop from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. on a Monday. So, it's just sort of like talking about, the kind of a sloppy beat in the background, kind of a little introduction. Starts off with the second track, Qui say F is this? Which is this great horns. Now Toby's making noise. Okay, these great horns in this guitar loop, kind of super strong. Like the beat comes in super funky. And then we have this great back and forth. The best back and forth on the entire album between Seinssucrer and between Dice B. Just like one goes and the other goes. We have the opening title where we have Qui est-ce que... No. Qui est-ce qui say the fuck is this? Which is just the most bizarre formulation of a French... It's a deformation of French. It's really crazy. And then even the title removes some of the relative pronouns. I'm losing you. I'm sorry. Relative pronouns are words like this or that, okay? Or who, like the person who goes, that's a relative pronoun. The person that is in the other room, that's a relative pronoun. Often in French Canadian, they just drop that. So that's why the title of the song actually drops out most of the relative pronouns. Qui say F is this? I was trying to describe this to my son. We were listening to this in the car. He loves it. And I was like, because he's learning French, and it's hard. And it's funny because my daughter spent a month in Quebec learning French, and she actually had an easier time understanding this, because this is how she speaks French now. It's fascinating hearing the Anyway, I'll get more into that later. Dice B has a little more of a faster style. This is a thing that he does throughout the album. He really matches Seinssucrer. He approaches it really from someone who is very carefully thinking about the style of the beat and the rapper. He doesn't just have one style. He has like multiple styles that goes in here. Talks about representing le vrai Québec. This is the real Quebec. It's all, mixed. It's diverse. And then just this great sample just lets the beat run. And it sounds like there's a jewelry commercial at the end. Can't quite place it out. Then we get to the stamp légal, illégal. Then another skit talking about the movement. And then we get to the song Plein de Juice. This song. In a more just world, Seinssucrer and Dice B would be huge on TikTok. This song is so ready for TikTok. Damn, c'est chaud. That's what they say at the beginning. Damn, it's hot. It's this super weird beat with this auto-tune where his voice is cracked. I'm not doing it justice. It is just this totally bizarre beat. This is that thing where they said, peut faire des trucs fucked up et des trucs boom bap. This is that former. This is the effed up stuff. His verse is like kind of low key, but he's still attacking. Basically incomprehensible. Like the street checks mon slang. I don't know. I don't know what he's saying. I don't know what he's saying. I'm embarrassed. I tried to find the lyrics. I tried. I looked everywhere. I can't find them anywhere. I'm a French professor who is totally flummoxed, completely walled by this song. Fortunately, Dice B comes on, and I'm able to understand everything he's saying. The funny thing is, he used the expression "fout le dawa," which is a totally slang expression, but that's a Parisian expression. I know "fout le dawa" because they say it all the time in French. So it's very funny. Like, I just feel like, thank God. Thank God I understand what Dice B is saying. Il n'y a rien à faire, je suis trop frère. There's nothing to do. I'm too much, brother. And then he mixes in so much English in here, and it's just kicked back like Danielle Rousseau. I was like, Danielle Rousseau? Is he talking about Rousseau from Lost? I think he is. I mean, talk about a guy who's not afraid to show his age on a track. You know, people don't talk about Lost. They should. And Danielle Rousseau was like the coolest character. I actually, if YouTube existed, or if I was on YouTube back then, I would have done a whole thing about the connection between Danielle Rousseau and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the philosopher. It's particularly the concept of a solitary walker. Anyways, Danielle Rousseau, played by a famous Croatian actress, also, interestingly enough. So, he talks about that, and then he says in English, I kick a hole in the speaker, and then I run through the casa. And the funny thing is, when I write out these lyrics, sometimes I write them in French and sometimes I write them in English. I don't even know which one it actually is. The next song is La Norme, very delicate beat with the guitars interweaving, a very sort of RZA-style drum beat, very kind of heavy bass. It starts off with this chorus that's a sort of old school chorus about hip-hop, about it being more than just a story of black people who are just trying to have some fun in hard times, and talking about how it's, as far as I can tell, the song's mainly about how hip-hop has become so much more. It's become the norm. And then Seinssucrer comes on a little bit more of a downbeat style. Russian Roulette, another one of my favorite tracks on the album. Big bass with the guitar in the back. The drums take like a second to kick in. It's really nice the way he holds off on the drums. Again, Dice B starts it off. Always on the road to success, which I think is an interesting line for someone who's been here for so long. Someone who's been here, always on the road to success. That's the one thing that really struck me in his interviews is just that he's just very realistic about his life and about, he's on the road to success. A little quote in the way back, say hello to my little friend from Scarface. And then he ends his whole verse, Dice B ends his whole verse talking about talking to the devil, and then he says in English, when hell freezes over, juste pour patiner. So he says when hell freezes over in English, because I don't think that expression exists in French. At least I don't know it in French. Yeah, I've never heard it in French. And then he says juste pour patiner, which means just to go ice skating, which is a little Canadian fun thing there. And then Seinssucrer comes on. This is where, his skill really becomes apparent, because his style here is a little bit funnier than the other styles. It's a little bit more whiny. He actually does a little bit of like Das Effects style, like super fast. He has such a charming attack, and then he's able to like take little breaks and say like c'est moi qui rappe sur le beat. It's me who's rapping on the beat. Just keeps attacking. Great beat control, great cadence, great rhythm, and then just lets the beat play out at the end because all of his beats are good. Ah ouais donc is the next song. So this is an expression which exists only in French Canada, and it essentially means go on or go ahead. And it matches this laid-back beat with this nice dirty drum beat. It sounds like keyboard. The way the keyboards are mixed, and I'm going to be a super nerd here, it reminds me of the way the organs sound when you're in the castle in Legend of Zelda Beneath the Wind, Breath of the Wild. That's how it sounds to me. Like the keyboards sound way far off, and this is great drum beat here. A very, very charming chorus with this expression "ah ouais donc." It's an expression of Québécois identity, but it's also it just sounds good. "Ah ouais donc." Try it at home. Okay, I'm going to do the Dora the Explorer thing. When I count to 1, I want you to say, no matter where you are, no matter who's in front, I don't care. I don't care if you're at a funeral watching this, okay? I want you to say, away donc, as loud as you are comfortable, okay? 3, 2, 1. Good. Away donc. It's great. And I'm going to tell you what I understood of part of his verse. Like, how confusing he is. He says, je suis sur le chromie. So that's a Parisian slang called verlan, where you inverse the syllables. So micro is how you say microphone. Chromie is that. So already I had to know like this extra code. And he makes reference, redonne sur moi comme un flashback. Okay, the word flashback, come back on me in a flashback, but flashback is English. He refers to Johnny Blaze, referring to Ghost Rider, and then says skelette, but I don't know what's in between there. He says something about je fais le Penny Hardaway, and then he rhymes that with basket, but I don't know what's in between there. And then he says chauve-souris, Ben Affleck. So chauve-souris means bald mouse, which is how you say bat in French. So he's making reference to Ben Affleck as Batman. But it's like Affleck, skelette, basket, interesting rhymes here. At some point, I think he makes reference to a hippie and calls him John Lemon. I think he says John Lemon, not John Lennon. I don't know. It's fun and frustrating. A kind of super attacking approach from Dice B. Next song is Faut to tune in. Again, missing these relative pronouns. It should be faut que to tune in. These relative pronouns are just totally gone. The beat is very jazzy to start, kind of talking and goofy. And then at the end, after that, like this whole beat comes in. It's really quite nice. Kind of like backwards sounds and like some string sounds. This is a little bit more in between le boom bap et le fucked up. Very kind of high-pitched voice. And then when Dice comes in, he's a lot more muted in his style. And again, he's doing this great job of constantly matching his collaborator. M'enva love you. I don't know what that means. M apostrophe enva love you. I don't know if that's like almost like a Jamaican patois mixed with verlan. I don't know. Like Meneva love you. Menva love you? I don't know. I looked up Enva on Google and I found a veterinarian hospital in Anjou, in France. I wrote, que veut dire Enva? And it's like École Nationale de Vétérinaire Anjou, something like that. Because I was listening to this in French, the word that came up to me when I heard this beat was just mortel. That's a good word in French. It means mortal, but it just means like killer. Just mortel. I don't know if even they say that in Canada. Mortel, this cut up, stuttered sound, more of this auto-tune weirdness, but it's like a weird like African like sample in the back. I don't know what it is. Seriously, I've never heard a beat like this before. I just haven't. So just, will you check it out? Have you ever heard a beat like this? I'm going to TikTok this damn thing. Okay, one second. Let me set up my TikTok. Okay. I'm going to be TikToking this. So here I go. So Menva Love You is a perfect example of this amazing beat style of Seinssucrer, where he creates this beat that's sort of like a boom bap style, but is really also just super messed up and kind of avant-garde. It's got like sort of auto-tune and like this weird what might be African sample underneath. Like, I'm just going to play it for you and you can just watch me talk about it while you listen to it play. Did that work out? Was that a good TikTok? I don't know. Dice B raps on here almost like Rampage, just going way back to the 90s. I don't know, because he's such a scholar of hip-hop. I don't know if that's intentional. And then at the end, he lets the beat ride, and then you just hear him talking, and that's where you really hear a lot of this fascinating Québécois accent. And it's fascinating, okay? It's fascinating. I can't help it. I'm a language teacher. C'est comme ça que ça se passe. Like, it's like the way you're supposed to pronounce it, ça se passe, you know, but ça se passe. Like, there's this weird O sound that they make. On est là. Instead of saying on est là, we're here. It's on est là. Like, imagine if you were listening to like a rap music guy and they were talking like, oh, that's right. You know that we're in whore. Instead of saying we're in here, you know? And it's authentic. That's an authentic way of speaking. It's fun to hear. A good example of that joie pronunciation. The next song is called Lighter. Now this one took me forever because I knew this reminded me of something. But I couldn't place what it was. I knew that Dice B was doing something. I don't know if he's doing this on purpose, but I'm fairly certain. Snoop Dogg has very few good albums. Okay, Snoop Dogg is... Anyways, but one of his best albums is The Last Meal from 2000. And on that album, a lot of it's produced or co-produced by Dre. He has a collaborator named Cocaine, spelled Kokane. A song, Stacey Adams, is probably my favorite Snoop Dogg song. And the thing about it is the way this guy sings. We stay on point like Stacey Adams. He has this weird, super, again, fractured, high-pitched, odd sound. And I think Dice B is imitating that, or is in that style, because the beat itself by Seinssucrer feels like that style of West Coast beat. It doesn't feel like straight G-Funk. It sounds like late G-Funk, 2000s G-Funk. All that I spit is fire. That's what Dice B says in French. And then another just sort of weird, funny mix-up verse from Seinssucrer, comme des noodles noyés avec de peanut butter, like noodles drowned in peanut butter. De la magie, Harry Potter, style free, Larry Hoover, et puis des FC. It's like, I don't know. I mean, so like he's talking about like Harry Potter and magic, and that makes sense. He's talking about noodles and peanut butter. I don't get that. I mean, it's like going to like a Thai restaurant. Style free, Larry Hoover. So he's taking the word freestyle and then mixing it around so that it would actually be more like word order in French, where the adjective usually comes after the noun. So style free as opposed to freestyle, but then it becomes free Larry Hoover, which is a big movement. Et puis des FC. I don't know who FC is, who they need to be free. Again, Dice B comes in, really high energy model, almost like he seems like he's almost running out of voice, like on purpose in his style. The album ends with the song Maintenant ou Jamais. Starts off with Speaking with Echoes, kind of a weird, squirrely, jazzy sample here. And here just, again, the poor relative pronouns, they just don't make it to Canada. Il faut je la fasse. So in order to use the subjunctive, which they use the subjunctive correctly here, you need three conditions. You need a change of subject. You need the pronoun que, and then you need an expression of doubt, desire, emotion. There's some other criteria, but those are the main ones. Doubt, desire, emotion. Okay. So, exigence, need. So this is the proper usage of the subjunctive. Je le fasse, as opposed to je le fais. That would be the indicative. Je le fasse is the subjunctive. But there's no que. Il faut je le fasse. That's hard. That's hard to hear as a French professor. I want to go in and I want to say, excuse me, Monsieur Sucre, t'as oublié le pronom. Probably my favorite verse from Dice B on the entire album is right here. He starts right off saying Demain c'est loin, which is a reference, I think, to one of his older songs and also to a famous song by the French rap group I Am. La scène est pleine de problèmes, la mienne des poèmes. Just has this great verse, like playing around with words, with cadences, and just a really strong, well-delivered verse. So there's my review. It's Thunderground Thursday. This is where I review stuff that you probably haven't heard of. I don't know how many views I'm going to get on this, but I'm going to tell you, you really need to have a listen. If you like modern underground hip-hop. If you don't like modern underground hip-hop, then go watch my Weezer video, which no one cares about. These are my Patreons. They give me money so I can buy music. I bought this album on iTunes because I was hoping they'd have the lyrics, but they didn't. Also, I like giving money to artists because they give me money. Okay? They give me money. I give them money. All right. Until next time, there's the camera.